We are on Daf 129, Kuf Chaf Tet. We will be finishing the 18th Perek of Masechet Shabbat, and the main topic for tonight is bloodletting. So, everything you've ever wanted to know about the details. This is certainly interesting, but not halacha l'maaseh. So we're starting off at the bottom of the previous daf with Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel, Haya, כל זמן שהקבר פתוח בין אמירה צריכה אני בין לא אמירה צריכה אני, לדין עליה את השבת. So a woman who's giving birth, Haya in the Tanakh means a midwife, but among the rabbis it means a woman giving birth. As long as the keber, as long as her womb is open, interesting, euphemism for saying her birth canal, kebed, but there's a pasuk in Mishlei that says a few things never are satiated, and one of them is the grave always wants more people to join, and a barren woman never gives up on having child. So there's a similarity. The beginning of life and end of life have a chiastic structure, I guess you might say. So as long as the womb is open, ben amira sirichani, ben lo amira sirichani, mechalin the Shabbat. Whether she says, I need something, she says, I need fire, I need light, I need oil, or if she says, I don't need, it doesn't actually over here in this version, it says she did not say, I need. Whether she says it or not, we bring it to her anyway, and we violate Shabbat for anything, any reason that may help her. נסתם הקבר בין אמירה סריחני בין לא אמירה סריחני אין מחלין עליה את השבת. However, once the womb is closed, then she's better. Then, even if she says, I need, or she says, I don't need, we do not violate Shabbat. In other words, we go by objective medical need, not by what she needs. Rav Hashem matni hachi, Mazmor Zutra matni hachi. So what we had before was a version of Rav Hashem. Mazmor Zutra, however, has a more lenient version of this teaching. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel, also in the name of Shemuel, but a different version. Haya kol zeman sheker patuch ben amira sirichani ben amira en sirichani mechalin Shabbat. So here already you have another akula, that whether she says, I need something, or whether she says, I don't need something, even if she says specifically, I don't need the light, I don't need fire, we still provide it for her because, we don't want to take any chances. And however, and nistama kebed, if the womb is closed, amra sirichani mechalin aleha Shabbat, lo amra sirichani and mechalin aleha et Shabbat. Whether she says, I need something, or she says, or she did not say I need something, we do not violate the Shabbat. All the more so if she says, I don't need it, then we would not. Okay, so that's the two opinions. Which one are we going to follow? Okay, good. This is a source of that very, very important principle, that any concern, any uncertainty, even if it's just 1% chance, then we are lenient, and therefore we follow the lenient position of Rav Asher. And even if she says, I don't want, we still provide whatever she might need. Okay, certainly very, very relevant during these times as well. Now, what does this mean? How do we define these time periods? What do we call the womb opening? When she's sitting on the birth stool, when she's ready to, she has birth pangs already. When she's bleeding. It's a machloket, whether is that earlier or later, or maybe it just depends on each person in each case. So this would be another criteria. When the friends have to carry by her arms because she can't walk. This seems to me like it would be an earlier period. But again, these are three different criteria for when the birthing process has begun. And so then you start violating Shabbat. And so when does it end? When does this period of, we call sakanat nefashot, and you could do anything? 3 days, full 3 days after, this is like a major disruption, surgery. so she is in danger for 3 days. 7 days. Others say 30 days, you can violate Shabbat, whatever she needs. I think that nowadays women stay in the hospital just 1 or 2 nights, but I know in my mother's time they used to stay a week. So I imagine even in earlier times there would be a slower recovery. So it's good that they allowed for that. The rabbis in Nehar De'ah said, Haya, Shelosha, Shib'ah, Ushloshim. There are 3 different time periods that are important for a woman in childbirth: the 3, 7, and 30 days. Shelosha ben amra srichani ben lamera lo srichani. So for those first 3 days, you violate Shabbat no matter what, whether she says, I need something or not. Shiva amra srichani mechalet Shabbat. Amra lo srichani mechalet Shabbat. Between 3 and 7 days, if she says she needs something, then we violate Shabbat. If she doesn't need anything, maybe she feels fine. She had an easy birth, and we don't have to violate Shabbat. However, after 30 days, she says violate Shabbat, we don't listen because she's fine. I mean, obviously, if she has some particular problem, we would, but this would be the standard amount. After 30 days, we do it through a Gentile. So in other words, after 30 days, she's no longer in Sakanat Nefashot territory, but she's Chola She'en Ba Sakana. And so this is, and we learn another principle that any person who is sick but not in life danger, you can provide anything that they need by asking a non-Jew. And so that's very important and practical halacha. Another halacha related to that is children are always considered cholim she'en behem sakana, and therefore, anything for little kids. K'derab ula bere derab ilai de'amar kol sorkeh chole na'asin aydeh armai b'shabbat, and that's the general principle. Anything that a sick person needs, we can ask a non-Jew to do if it's not life-threatening. Good, we have extra support, so many rabbis agree with that. This is with the same, also in the name of Shemuel was the previous halacha, so another one in his name. Lechaya sheloshim yom. When we mentioned 30 days, what is 30 days? A woman who gave birth to a child should not go to the mikveh within 30 days. Because mikvehs back then were like in caves and were cold and not heated, and so she should not go into something. She could catch a cold if she does that, so she should stay away. It's only if she's alone, but if her husband is with her, then she'll go home and be with her husband, and her husband will warm her up. It's very nice and romantic. The daughter of Rav Chisda was married to Rava. It's interesting to look at all the family relations between the rabbis. And she once went to the mikveh within 30 days, and the wife, her husband was not there, and she caught a cold. And then afterwards, they had to bring her body to Rava to Pumbedita. He was away, so that was a good lesson, and not to do that again. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel, also in his name, Osin Medura Lehaya B'Shabbat B'Mot Geshamim. We got to make sure that the woman who gave birth to a child will be nice and warm, so we can build, even on Shabbat, you can build a fire when it's during the winter. We thought that maybe it means only for a woman who's in childbirth, but not for a general sick person. And we thought to say only in the winter, but not the summer. But that's not true. And in fact, they were just giving examples in childbirth and winter. But if it was needed for any sick person, any season of the year, they needed that warmth, we would do it for them. And we know this because Shemuel said that someone who does bloodletting, we make a fire for them. It's important for someone to be in the right temperature if they let blood, even in the summer, to help them out. Okay, now that we mentioned bloodletting, we're going to continue. The whole rest of the Perek will be different medical advice about bloodletting. Shemuel selah ole taka de sha'aga. Rav Yehuda selah ole petorah de yavna. Rabba selah ole shar shifa. After Shemuel did bloodletting, they wanted to make a fire. There was no firewood around, so they actually broke his armchair made of this teak wood. And also didn't have any, and they had an ebony. The word in Aramaic is yavna, which you can see comes from the Greek ebenos, same as our English word. So a nice fancy table, but they broke it because this is sakanat nefashot, and so even on Shabbat, and even if it's a fancy item, I break it and make a fire. And for the Rabbah, they broke a bench. He says, how could you break this nice piece of furniture? Isn't that bal tashchit? That's not destroying. You shouldn't destroy anything of value. Yeah, otherwise I'm going to destroy my body and I can get too sick. So bal tashchit applies also to people and to people more than to property. So therefore, it's worth it. Better shoes are so important. It's first of all, it's not dignified to walk around without shoes. Also, you can catch a cold if it's cold out, and so to sell the beams of your house to have shoes. Yet, even though that's so important, hikis dam ve'en lo mayochal yimkol min alim sheberaglav yaspik mehen sorche seoda. But eating after bloodletting is even more important than to even sell your shoes to get a good meal after bloodletting. A little tangent here about bloodletting in general. This was probably the most common medical practice for the past 2,000 years. Galen has it, and it relates to the humors of the body, the 4 different humors that have to be in good balance. And so if the blood is out of balance, you let out some blood. They also didn't know about circulation. They thought blood goes to some, to extremities, stagnates there. And so this would be a way of refreshing. In fact, does not seem to be any medical benefit at all bloodletting, except maybe if someone has hypertension, it might help a little. But really, otherwise, it's kind of tragic to think of millions of people throughout their lives doing regular bloodletting, excruciating pain, almost fainting, almost dying. I'm sure many people did die from it. George Washington died from bloodletting. Just take a little too much blood, a little enthusiastic, and the guy's finished. Medicine. So that's kind of sad and tragic. I'm sure in 2,000 years from now, they'll say, what'd you do? You gave chemo until the guy almost dead. More people maybe die from chemo than from cancer itself, and so they'll feel bad for us as well. However, the advice that they have about getting better does seem to be good advice. When if we give us some crackers and apple juice and stuff. So it is important to eat, and we'll see the different things that Talmud recommends eating to get one's blood levels back up. So what should you eat? Rav amar basar, and that is good advice. You have iron, anybody would need that. Shmuel amar yayin. Wine, not sure if that would be so good, but liquids, if it was diluted wine, you want to have lots of liquids. So Rav amar basar nafsha halaf nafsha. Why meat? Because you gave up your life, so eat something that was alive. Something red replaces something red. Often wine and blood are compared to each other. Okay, so I don't know if that's the reason why it would be good, but it's good to have liquids. Shemuel, the siman is mnemonic. Shen Nimsar, these are the names of the sages that are about to come. Shin for Shemuel. These simanim are scattered throughout the Talmud, and they show that the Talmud actually was memorized by heart. And so these mnemonic devices would be used to remember the order. Shemuel biyomad abad milleta abdi de tabshila de tahle. When he would do bloodletting, he would have a spleen, which is also a good idea. Spleen has a lot of blood, it cleans the blood, and would have a lot of iron. He would drink so much until the smell of wine would come out of his ears. Rav Nachman Nachman would drink so much until his spleen was floating in wine. This is an exaggeration. They're just saying, drink some extra. Rav Yosef Shatad Nafek Meribeda Bechusilta. He would drink until you could smell the blood coming out of the incision. Rava Mehadar Hamra Bartelata Tarfe. Rava would have a wine that is aged 3 leaves, by which he means that it was 3-year-old wine, and that would be particularly good. אמר להו רב נחמן בר יצחק לרבנן, במטותא מנייכו ביומא דהבה כזה, אמרו לבית צייכו, נחמן Nachman would help out his students, and he would tell them, on the day of bloodletting, tell your wives that I'm coming to as a guest, and that way they'll prepare a really nice meal because the rabbi's coming. And I'm not sure if he ended up coming or not, but the point is that that would be an excuse, and so that it would encourage the wives to make a good meal for them, because it's important to eat a good meal. And this is a little bit of a trick, but and in general, tricking, lying is not allowed. However, once in a while, there are certain white lies that are allowed, and that was one of them. Here's another one. The following is allowed. Someone does bloodletting and he does not have enough money to buy a wine. He should take a zuz that is debased. Right? It was their money was based on the amount of actual metal in it, so stamped. But what people would do every time they would shave off a little bit from the edge, and if you do that of every coin that you have, then you can make a little extra money, but eventually the coin is so shaved off that it's not worth the value that's stamped on it. That's why some coins, like our quarters, have grooves on the edges, so that if you would shave off anything, you would tell the difference. So this guy, he's very poor, but he can find a bad zuz, and he should take that to different wine stores at the time. And each wine store, he shows, like, I have some money, I want to buy something, let me taste it first. And so he should go and taste it. And then he offered to pay for it, but the wine seller will not accept the money. And that way, by tasting a little bit in 7 different stores, he can get enough wine to feel better. Okay, so why is this allowed? Well, I mean, technically it does have some money, and it is worth something. I mean, someone might actually accept it, and tasting is, they are giving out free taste. Doesn't like it. I mean, if you go to a restaurant and they give you the bottle, you taste a little, you never say, no, I don't like it, I want something else. Then I guess you could, right? And or not, oh, I don't want wine at all. So technically you could, and also it's sakatat nefashot. So if someone is so poor and they need medicine, are you allowed to steal medicine if you need it to live? It's a famous dilemma. So a small white lie that's for an important need, and Talmud says therefore that is allowed. If he can't do that, he doesn't have wine stores around, he doesn't have a zuz like that. Lechol shav temre uchamta zeshuf mishcha besi da'eh benigni beshimsha. Then he should have 7 black dates and put oil on his temple and lie in the sun, and that will heat him up. I guess the point of wine is it heats a person up and more blood, and this is also will help in a similar way. Okay, one time this non-Jew Ablat, he found Shmuel, and Shmuel was sunbathing. You're supposed to be the wise person of the Jews. Shmuel was known for his wisdom. People would ask him questions about astrology, about dreams, about medicine. And he says, Bisha mihavataba, something bad. Can it be good? The sun is bad for you. Interesting. They thought the sun was bad for them. I guess they didn't have suntan lotion. So they're mostly right about that. I did bloodletting today, and I need some sun. That's what was the answer. Velahi, but actually Shmuel was not telling the complete truth there. There is one day of the year when it's good to have the sun, and that's in the summer solstice. the longest day of the year. That day, sun is good. But he didn't want to reveal this secret to Ablat, and so he made up an excuse and he said, I was bloodletting today. In fact, he might not have been bloodletting that day. So we learn first of all that sun is good for bloodletting, and that sunbathing on the winter solstice is also good. Okay, we have another siman, hekel beruach ta'ama shaha siman. So hekel is the first one. Here, Rav Shmuel damar damre tarvayu kol hamekel besudat hakazadam. Anyone who is lenient, who is light on his meal after he lets blood, mikilin lo mezunotam min hashamayim. From heaven, they will give him less food. So don't skimp out on your bloodletting meal. Heaven, they say he doesn't care about his own life. Should we care about him? So that's bad luck. Someone who does bloodletting should not sit in a windy place. Perhaps the bloodletter let out a little too much blood, and the minimum amount you need is a log of blood, and maybe he left just enough for him to live. And if a little bit more wind comes, that'll take some energy out of him, and then he might go below that threshold, and it would be in danger of death. So do not sit in a windy place. That's the second item in the mnemonic of ruach. Shemuel abad agil ve'abad mileta bebeta shab lebeniya ve'aricha. Yom hada abad ve'argish benafshe bedak ve'chasar had aricha. Shemuel, he would do bloodletting in a house that had very thick walls, 7.5 bricks thick. Each brick tefach. So it'd be like 2 feet thick, these brick walls, because he wanted to make sure that there was absolutely no wind. And so one day he did it in a house, and he felt sick, and he went and checked, and sure enough, only 7 tefachim thick, missing half of a tefach, and that's why he became weak. This is like the original version of the Princess and the Pea. Right? You tell. So, Rav Shmuel damre tarvayu, all these halachotim in the name of Rav Shmuel. Hayman de'abed milleta litom mideh v'hadar lipok. You should always eat something first after you do bloodletting. Eat something first and then go out. Right? Don't go out on an empty stomach. Otherwise, if he sees a corpse, his face will turn green. The person's like almost fainting, and this will push him over the edge. If he finds a murderer, then the person of the bloodletting will die. Here we have euphemisms for if he sees a pig, then he will get leprosy. Pigs were known for his skin disease, and so I guess his will be down, and might catch that disease. So Rav Shmuel damre tarvayu, hayman de'abed mileta lishe purta v'hadar lekom. If after bloodletting, you should wait a little while, rest, and only then stand up. 5 things bring someone closer to death than life. Velohen achal ve'amad, shata ve'amad, yashen ve'amad, hikiz dam ve'amad, shirishmish mitato ve'amad. All these things draw blood away from your head, and if you stand up too quickly, you'll get dizzy. And that's eating, after eating, rest, after drinking, after sleeping, after bloodletting, and after marital relations. Amar Shemuel, Pursa didema kol telata yomin, uben haperakim yema'et, uben haperakim yachzor v'yima'et. How often should one do bloodletting? Interestingly, they didn't only do it when they weren't feeling well. They did that also when they had old maps of the body, if with different things, if you have a headache, if you have an earache, where you should let the blood out from. But a regular purging is also done every month. But that's for only half of one's life. When you get to the middle of your life, well, I don't know how long you're going to live, but you just, average, big borot shemonim shana, so we figure a long life might be 80 years old. So when you get to about 40 years old, then do it not a little bit less, not every month, but every other month. And when you get to the next halfway mark, about 60 years old, then only go every 3 months. So that's probably the best advice that they could give, right? Just relax. ממש שמואל פורסה דדמה, חד בשבתה, ארבעה ומעלה שבתה. A good time for bloodletting is Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. אבל שני וחמישי, Monday and Thursday, לאדם אמור, מי שיש לו זכות אבות יקיז דם בשני ובחמישי. שבית דין של מעלה ושל מטה שווים כאחד. Only someone who knows that he has merit of the ancestors, he can go on Monday and Thursday, because just as the lower courts, the earthly courts, meet on Mondays and Thursdays, which is also, why we say Tachanun and we read Torah. Also, the upper courts judge the whole world on Mondays and Thursdays, and so therefore, when a person is down and out, when a person bloodlet and he's feeling weak, that's when, if he's not doesn't have perfect merit, that might join his disease and bring him a negative outcome. So for most people, avoid those days. Now, how about Tuesday? What's wrong with Tuesday? Because Mars is dominant in the even hours on Tuesday. The ancient astrology, they knew about 5 planets they called wanderers, and the sun and the moon, those were the 7 luminaries, and each luminary rules over at different hours of the day. If you start Sunday morning at sunrise and take past the first hour, that'll be the first luminary, and then you go every hour. They take turns, and then you make a chart for that whole week. You'll end up with a chart where on Tuesday you'll see that Mars is in the even numbers, and so Mars is a bad sign. Mars was the is the red planet, the god of war and bloodshed, and so you don't want to do bloodletting when Mars is ascendant, and the even hours are the stronger ones. So you want to avoid Tuesday. But hold on Friday also Mars is ruling over the even hours. People got used to doing that already for years and years. Everybody's always doing it on Friday. I guess it would be a good day because you could rest on Shabbat. And so, since people do it already, so we apply the pasuk that Hashem protects those who are simple and they didn't realize that they're doing that. This is a dangerous thing. So therefore, God will protect them. However, since it was not done that way on Tuesday's still out. Amar Shmuel, Arba'a dehu Arba'a. The 4th day of the week, Wednesday, if it's also the 4th day of the month or the 14th day of the month or the 12th of the month, you should avoid that. Avoid doing bloodletting on that day. Also, if it's a Wednesday that does not have 4 more days of the month left in it, also is dangerous. Rosh Chodesh v'Sheni lo chulsha. Rosh Chodesh and the day after it, a person will become weak if they bloodlet. Shelishi lo sakana. The 3rd day after the month, that is actually dangerous. Malei yom haba chulsha. But for Yom Tov, that causes weakness. Malei yom asarta sakanta. The day before Shavuot, that is actual danger to do bloodletting that day. Because the rabbis actually made a gezerah. It's interesting, they make a halacha l'maaseh gezerah for health reasons, perceived health reasons, that you should not do bloodletting before any Yom Tov, because so that to make sure no one will do bloodletting before Shavuot. Then afek bezika ushme tibuach v'la kadi v'di lo Torah avat tabach lehu lebisraihu ulada maihu. Why Shavuot? Because on Shavuot there is an evil spirit named Tibuach, meaning slaughter, and is checking to see will they accept the Torah or not. not. And if they don't, then it will slaughter their flesh and blood. So this is a really dangerous day. You want to be, full immunity. You don't want to be compromised on such a day. Now, I mean, in Peshat, this would only be applied to the first Shavuot when they said Na'aseh v'nishma. But I think you learn from here something interesting, that every year is, in a way, we have to accept upon ourselves the Torah, and every year it's in the balance to see, are you going to accept it this year or not? And so you see how the rabbis thought of this as an annual recommitment to the acceptance of the Torah. Amar Shemuel, Achal chita ve'kiz dam, lo hikiz ela leota chita, v'nevil l'refuah v'ala koleh mekel. If you eat wheat and before bloodletting, then the bloodletting is not going to be very effective. All you're doing is letting out that food that you just ate. So better to not eat before bloodletting. However, this is only if you're bloodletting for medical reasons, because for medical reasons you want to let the blood out so that the humor be rebalanced and you get rid of all that bad blood. So then you should not eat before. But if it's just that you feel bloated or something, then you even after food, that will be bloodletting will be effective. If you let blood, you should drink immediately, but you should eat only after the time it takes to walk half of a meal. We have two questions about this advice. When you say you should drink right away, okay, so that means drinking right away is good. But does that mean to imply that drinking later is bad? Or it doesn't matter. Drinking later just doesn't help, but it's not bad. We don't know the answer. We have to do some research on that. And the next question, when it says you should eat after a few minutes, it's effective and will help you get better. Let's say later or before that time period. Kashe, is that actually negative? Or it's neutral, it's parv. Also, we don't know the answer. Machriz Rav, Me'a kare bezuza, Me'a reshe bezuza, Me'a sefame velo kelum. Rav announced, here they translate 100 bloodlettings for a zuz, but kare, that she explains as gourd. As if someone's selling 100 gourd for a zuz, take it, it's a good deal. And also 100 heads of an animal for a zuz, take it, it's a good deal. Because gourds and heads of animals, they are beneficial. They're not very beneficial, so don't spend a lot of money on it. But if it's that cheap, then buy it. It's worth a little bit. But if someone is selling lips, cow lips, then do not buy them for anything. They have nothing. No benefit from them. Amar Rav Yosef ki avena be Rav Huna yoma dimfagere be Rabbanan v'amre hayidana yoma disfamehu ve'layadana ma'ika amri. And we have a funny story about this. One time when Rav Yosef says he was at the study house of Rav Huna, and the rabbis were lazy. They didn't come. They were slow in studying. It was not a productive day, and they said today is a lip day, and they didn't know what they were referring to. And this is what they're referring to: that lips have no benefit. So too, that the study of that day did not come to anything. No benefit. Okay, all that is Rashi's interpretation. Another interpretation based on Yomi and Tosafot is as follows: usually, the person doing the bloodletting was also the barber. I guess he had razors, and so he was probably cutting people anyway. So while he's at it, and that's the red and white, barbershop sign is to advertise the red blood and the white bandages. Also interesting, I just recently learned. Actually, Rabbi Shama told me that the reason why barbershops have all clear windows is to make sure that they're never not alone. That in case he's purposely by mistake kills someone, there's always accountable. There's always people looking in. It's true even till today. Barbershops have big open windows. Anyway, so since people go to the barber and get a haircut and a bloodletting, for one low price, the barbers would throw in mustache trim for free. But even if they didn't get a chance to do that day, they might come another day and get the free mustache trim. And so sefameh is a way of saying that the barber worked but didn't gain anything from it. And so that's the expression here. The rabbis came and studied, but they were lazy in their study, and so there was no benefit that came from that day. Okay, well, that's what it means. 100 mustache trims, and you get nothing from it. Okay, good. So that's the story about bloodletting. Now we're back to the Mishnah. Koshrin tabur says that you should you may tie the umbilical cord of the newborn baby. Not only can you tie it, Rabbi Yosef says you can also cut it. And you are allowed to enclose afterbirth, the placenta, so that the child will be warm. This is an interesting, some kind of a homeopathic magic or medicine that there's some connection between the baby and the placenta. And usually during the week, they would actually bury the placenta, and that would keep it warm. And taking care of the placenta would also help the baby. And so this was so important that it was done in different ways. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, benot melachim, tomnot bispalim shel shemen. If someone is a princess, they would put them insulate in oil. Benot ashirim besifogim shel semer. Rich people couldn't afford that much oil, put it in fine wool. And benot aniyim bemochin, poor people would insulate the afterbirth in rags. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Abu, Amar Rav halacha Rabbi Yosef, that you cut the umbilical cord, and now you don't have to just tie it, you can actually cut it. And then the Talmud Yerushalmi explains this burying of the placenta as a kind of offering that now that someone was born, the ground wants to take back the life, and so we put the placenta on the ground and say, okay, be happy with this, right, and leave the baby alone. Okay. V'amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Abu, Amar Rav, modim chachamim leRabbi Yosef v'tabur shel shnei tinokot shechotchin, ma'tama dimnatehi ahadadeh. And everyone agrees, even Rabbi Yosef agrees, that if you have twins, then you may and should cut the umbilical cord, because otherwise each one's going to be pulling on it. I'm not sure how it works. Do twins have two? Do they share an umbilical cord? Do they have two umbilical cords? Well, they have two, but they're attached to one, or they're in? I don't know. We have to check that. Okay. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Abu, Amar Rav. Kol ha'amur beparashat tochecha osin lehaya b'Shabbat. This is very interesting. In the Yechezkel, chapter 16, this is a famous, let's look at it together. This is a famous section that says, Hashem says to Jerusalem, it's giving tochecha to her and saying, remember how I took care of you back in the desert? It says, V'amarta, ko amar Adonai Elohim Yishalayim mechorotayich u'moledotayich me'eretz Kenani abicha mori v'mech Hittite. By origin and birth, you've come from Canaan. Father's an Amorite, your mother a Hittite. In other words, you're a foreigner. Your origins are not important. Moledotayich beyom huledet otach lo charat shorech ubemayim lo ruchatzt ulemishai vehomleach lo humlacht vehochtel lo hutalt. When you were born, it's giving an analogy of Bnei Israel to a baby girl who was abandoned by her mother. And so when you were born, your navel cord was not cut. You were not bathed in water to make food. You were not rubbed with salt. You were not swaddled. No one cared about you and to do any of these things for you. And you were just left there lying in the field. And Hashem, what did Hashem do? And I passed by you and I saw you wallowing in your blood, and I said, live, and I took care of you, and I brought you up, And now, what did you do after you're all mature? You went and left me, cheated on me. That's like Bnei Israel. Hashem took care of them. And then after they were a nation, got into the land, and were okay, they rejected God. Okay, so from this Pesukim, we can learn all the things that people used to do to take care of a newborn baby. So that's what Nachman name of Rav says. Anything then this parasha we are allowed to do on Shabbat, because obviously, if Hashem did it for Bnei Israel, with an analogy of someone finding a baby girl, does it to the baby girl to help. Obviously, these are things that are necessary, and you can violate Shabbat to do them. And so we learn from there that from the beginning that you are allowed to deliver a newborn on Shabbat and actually help the baby come out. And so it says that infant, its umbilical cord was not cut, so we learn that you're allowed to cut it on Shabbat. You have to clean the baby off. They would salt. Apparently, they put some salt on its flesh. It's make the skin harder. Maybe it wasn't exactly salt. It was some kind of baby powder mixed with salt. And since that baby was not swaddled, we learn that swaddling is also important for the baby, and therefore you can even violate Shabbat and do everything you can to swaddle the baby. Azran alach mefanin. We will return to the Perek of Mefanin and Chazakim u'Beruchim.